What's up YouTube, it's the one and only legend of winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another video. Now, if you are familiar with the NBA community, you understand that you would constantly get in debates, conversations about the NBA, the players, the buzzer beaters, the moments that we all love and enjoy about the sport of basketball. However, over the endless years, replays, highlights that we constantly enjoy, some way, somehow, there have been multiple people who have been misinformed on the sport of basketball, and so in today's video what I decided to do was tackle some of the biggest myths, lies, and misconceptions when it comes to the sport, along with the NBA players and just the community as a whole. Now, the first lie that I have to tackle that is constantly being spread, especially amongst Kobe fans, is that in 2006, Kobe Bryant deserved the regular season MVP over Steve Nash. So in 2006, because Kobe Bryant had a phenomenal season, especially when it comes to his scoring output, and the fact that this was Steve Nash's second MVP, a lot of people question, should Steve Nash have actually won that award? And if not, Kobe Bryant definitely should have been the recipient of that award. However, that is a complete myth and one of the biggest lies that is constantly told in the NBA community. For one, if we were looking at the traditional definition of the MVP, Steve Nash checks off almost every box. That year, the Phoenix Suns had one of the best records in the NBA. Steve Nash statistically had a pretty solid season, averaging nearly 19 points and over 10 assists, while shooting 50% from the field, 40% from behind the arc, and 90% from the free throw line. And Steve Nash had a pretty compelling story to why exactly he should have won MVP that season. That year, Amar'e Stoudemire was hurt and only played 3 games, and in the offseason they lost Joe Johnson and traded him to the Atlanta Hawks, and in return only received Boris Diaw, which at the time was nowhere near the type of player that we now know him as. So a lot of people were expecting the Phoenix Suns not to be as successful as they were in that regular season. And quite honestly, if there was a year that Steve Nash should have won MVP, I actually do believe that this year he fits almost every category that needs to be fit. However, there are a lot of people who still point out the fact that Steve Nash had plenty of help on his team, and he definitely should not have won it, especially with the numbers that he posted up. Averaging 20 points, especially compared to Kobe Bryant, who averaged 35, definitely isn't enough. And outside of his assist numbers and his efficiency, the rest of his stat line is pedestrian at best. However, even using that logic and saying that Kobe Bryant carried the most, Kobe still should not have won MVP that season. By that logic, LeBron should have won MVP. Looking at their stat line, there's no clear indication that Kobe had a better statistical season. When it comes to points, yes, Kobe Bryant averaged 35 points. However, LeBron averaged 31, so the difference is only 4. Then when it comes to rebounds and assists, LeBron comes out on top. When it comes to steals and blocks, it's fairly tied. Field goal percentage, you give it to LeBron. 3-point percentage, again, is fairly tied. However, it does favor Kobe. And then after that, if you look at advanced metrics, it definitely favors LeBron, especially when you look at his win shares. So statistically speaking, outside of scoring, Kobe definitely did not have a better year than LeBron did. And then after that, you also have people make the argument that Kobe had to carry one of the worst rosters in the NBA at that time. Now, don't get me wrong, that's completely true. However, the same can be said about LeBron's roster as well. Outside of Ilgauskas, who averaged 15 points, however grabbed less rebounds and facilitated less assists than Lamar Odom, the rest of the lineup is extremely questionable. But the cherry on top of all of this is that LeBron was able to lead his team to a record of 50 wins and 32 losses, while Kobe Bryant was only able to lead the Lakers to 45 wins. So I really don't understand why people still say to this day that Steve Nash stole an MVP from Kobe Bryant in 2006. The second lie that I constantly hear in the NBA community is the 2013 NBA draft was one of the worst drafts in NBA history. People constantly say that the 2013 draft was terrible simply due to the fact that Anthony Bennett was the #1 selection, and later on that year, Michael Carter Williams won the Rookie of the Year. However, as time has continued to progress and we've seen a lot of those players develop throughout the years, we can clearly tell that the 2013 draft really wasn't as bad as a lot of people are led on to believe. There are plenty of quality starters in that draft class, such as Victor Oladipo, Otto Porter, Steven Adams, Tony Snell, Tim Hardaway. Then you have players who can at least play the all-star level sooner than later, such as Rudy Gobert, Dennis Schroeder, and CJ McCollum. And the greatest player in that draft class is a player that I think a lot of people expect to be one of the best players moving forward, and that's Giannis Antetokounmpo. So looking at the quality players that the 2013 NBA draft produced, I don't understand why people still say this. The thing that's even more frustrating is you don't even have to go that far back to find draft classes that are comparable when it comes to talent. However, if you still believe that the 2013 draft is one of the worst, just look at the 2000 draft, because that is by far the worst draft class in NBA history. The best player that came out of the 2000 draft class was Kenyon Martin, Mike Miller, and Jamal Crawford. Now, the next misconception that I want to tackle is that Kawhi Leonard isn't quote-unquote valuable because when he sits out games, the San Antonio Spurs this season had a winning record of 7-1. This right here is extremely annoying when I hear people say this, because it's obviously they're just regurgitating the same thing that they see on TV or what they see through Twitter memes or Instagram posts. But to tackle this misconception that I constantly hear, let's look at those 7 games that the San Antonio Spurs won without Kawhi Leonard. First, we have the Phoenix Suns and then the Brooklyn Nets, some of the worst teams in the NBA. The Dallas Mavericks with none of their starters outside of Yogi Ferrell playing more than 20 minutes. The Portland Trail Blazers without Damian Lillard. The Toronto Raptors without DeMar DeRozan. The Sacramento Kings without DeMarcus Cousins. And the Golden State Warriors, where they infamously played none of their starters. So yeah, when you actually take the time out and look at the games that they end up winning without Kawhi Leonard, these are games that they should be expected to win, especially since they still have a player in LaMarcus Aldridge who can play at an all-star level when he's much more involved in the offense. So when you actually look at it, I really don't understand the logic to that argument, and people, please stop telling me that the San Antonio Spurs went 7-1 without Kawhi Leonard this year, so he's not quote-unquote valuable, because you sound so ignorant that it's ridiculous. Please stop telling me that on Twitter. I get so frustrated when I see that. And finally, one of the biggest lies that are constantly told in the NBA community is that Stephen Curry has only been good for 3 years. This is something that's extremely annoying because constantly I hear people say this about Curry, and it just doesn't make any sense. So let's get these facts straight. Starting off from the beginning of his career, Stephen Curry averaged 17.5 points, right under 6 assists, 4.5 rebounds, nearly 2 steals, and shot 46% from the field and 43% from behind the arc. Now, I'm not going to talk about his efficiency, I'm not going to talk about his steals, I'm not going to talk about how many 3-pointers he made. Let's just specifically look at the points and assists that he recorded as a rookie. In the modern NBA, which is from 1979 until now, there's only been 57 players in their rookie season who've been able to average at least 17.5 points. Since the year 2000, there's only been 13 players in their rookie season who's been able to average 17.5 points. And since Curry has entered the NBA, there's only been 6 players who've been able to accomplish this. When you move on to his assists, in NBA history, there have been only 42 players in their rookie year who've been able to average 5.9 assists or more. Since the year 2000, there have only been 12 players who averaged 5.9 assists in their rookie season. So looking at his rookie numbers, they're easily comparable and they're on pace with a lot of other great players, especially other point guards. Now, in his second year, he did plateau, and in his third year, that's when he was dealing with injuries. However, in his fourth year, he went on to average nearly 23 points, almost 7 assists, 4 rebounds, a steal and a half, while shooting 45% from the field and 45% from behind the arc. In that 2013 season, Stephen Curry recorded over 1,750 points, while also facilitating over 500 assists. Only 37 players have been able to achieve that in NBA history. And out of those 37 players, 5 of them have been able to accomplish that 5 times or more in their career. Those 5 players are LeBron James, Oscar Robertson, Larry Bird, Russell Westbrook, and Stephen Curry. And for people out there who believe I'm just pointing out 1 or 2 seasons, Curry for his first 8 seasons in the NBA has recorded over 13,000 points. In NBA history, there have been only 40 players within their first 8 years who've been able to record over 13,000 points. And that number gets trimmed down even further if you're just looking at from the year 2000 until now, all the way to 6 players. Now, when it comes to assists, because I know a lot of people want to point that out, Curry has already recorded over 3,900 assists in his first 8 years in the NBA. In NBA history, only 42 other players have been able to accomplish this. And since the year 2000, there has only been 10 players who've been able to accomplish this in their first 8 years of their career. And again, Curry is one of those players. So I don't understand where people are coming from when they say that Curry's only been doing this for 2 or 3 years. The reality is, you really don't watch basketball that much, and you've only been catching on to Curry because the media has been paying more attention to him. And notice how all of the numbers that I just showed you from Curry, I didn't say anything about steals. I didn't say anything about how many 3-pointers he made. I didn't talk about All-Star appearances. I didn't talk about All-NBA selections. I didn't talk about MVPs. I didn't talk about finals appearances. I didn't talk about championships. I didn't even talk about him being on a team that won 73 games in the regular season. I didn't say none of that. I just talked about points and assists. That's it. And before I wrap up this video, quick shout out to the NBA Storyteller, because he's doing a video on one of the big lies that I was going to put in my video originally. However, I had to take it out because I think he did a better job than I did. So make sure you go check that out. I'll make sure I'll leave a link in the description. And with that being said, I will see you all later. Peace.